Good evening, Kathy Mortensen here with Equality Matters, talking about all the things that make us equal, that bring us together in alignment. And I'm on the line of the Lord's Prayer, lead us not into temptation, deliver us from evil. And on Wednesday, I talked about what these words mean, how evil is about being unripe in the original Aramaic understanding, or being stagnated. So when our heart guides us in our being, we are being vulnerable and resilient when we say this line of the prayer. And tonight I'm going to focus a little bit more on what we're doing. So today in my doing, I had lunch with two people that I know. One gal is donating to us a nonprofit. And we've been working on this for several weeks. And one brought the paperwork, and another was like, we're not sure what to do. It kind of went back and forth. And I thought it was, we needed to get, they wanted the paperwork signed that day. So that my background thinking here, whereas I was tempted in my doing. And so I really focused on the doing part of the task at hand. And the other two gals were like, oh, we don't need this right away, right? We can still work on this. We can still figure out the paperwork. And during our meal arrived, and then during lunch, they had mentioned how for the name of the nonprofit, we're going to rename it, that we needed to look in three places. And I had looked in one and didn't find anything named like what we wanted. And they said, oh, you need to look in these other two places. So still thinking, still caught in that temptation, forgetting the words that were said or the presence of the moment. I started looking all the information up to see if the name was in the federal database or the Arizona Corporation Commission, and got off track about being present. So I was tempted. And so I use that story just for us to reflect on that from the doing point, when we're meditating on this line of prayer, lead us not into temptation, deliver us from evil, that what we are doing is we're restoring. We're restoring ourselves back to our light by remembering who we are, by allowing ourselves to return to who we are, by aligning with our values and who we are inside. So I, of course, blew it at lunch, being present totally, not catching or getting all of the vibes during the lunch about being present and honoring the stories versus looking up information. So as I share that, I want to go through a few thoughts about temptation and evil and being delivered and not leading into temptation. So when we enter into forgetfulness, we're being unaware. We're forgetting to be aware. That was me today. And it's okay. We're all going to forget at times. But I think it's a good example of what you can sort through in everyday life about leading us not into temptation, but delivering us from evil. When we don't enter forgetfulness, we're choosing awareness. We're holding that thread of truth through the distractions. I was distracted by the task at hand versus being with the people. We can also be distracted by our fears. Our fears can take us away from remembering who we are and connecting to those threads of truth. Illusions can also take us away from remembering who we are. So when we meditate on this line of the prayer, we're remembering who we are beneath the roles. We're not just moms or dads, brothers or sisters. We're not just husbands and wives, aunts and uncles. We're not workers in our job. I mean, we are those things. We are those labels, but we are more than that. Let me add that. There's more to life than what's expected of us from the outside worlds. I'm sure it was expected that I be more present rather than on my phone looking up the information that I thought everyone wanted. It was an illusion for me. So say this line of the prayer. Remember who you are, that you're more than the roles. We're more than how we perform as you go through the day. Forgetfulness and awareness are part of this prayer. Part of this prayer can be untangling. When we free ourselves from what holds us back, what holds us back from being present? What holds us back? Sometimes fear, sometimes not being good enough, sometimes not catching on to what people are saying. We untangle. We spend the time when we meditate on this line. We're untangling from our past narratives. We're untangling from unmet needs. We might get a clearer idea of what it is that we really, really need. We can untangle from needing external validation. When you can really see yourself for who you aren't tempted to seek it, to seek validation outside of yourself. When we are free, when we free ourselves from these temptations, we're allowing space for us to move, to flow, to allow the moment to emerge. I neglected that a little bit today. I just like how framing it through these words helps soften the word evil, especially for me. When we move from temptation and we look at it, we begin to learn how to avoid false appearances. We can see more deeply through the words that people say. We use the wisdom of our heart and our experiences to see what's true and what's false about who we're interacting with or what appearances are out there in the world. We have a kind of an intuition. Our gut instincts tells us, can I trust this? Can I not? And if they don't, we learn through saying this prayer when to trust and when not to trust. It becomes a teaching tool for us. When we say this line of the prayer, we're working towards what we're doing is piercing through the illusions, letting what is real rise, and honoring substance over what is show, how much I know, that kind of thing. When we break up our own stagnation, when we're stuck in a rut, easy to get stuck. This line of the prayer can help us get out of it. We can break this shell of not being ripe by allowing deeper realizations. We can participate in this process of transforming ourselves because we're going to say yes to growth rather than yes to punishment. We're going to say yes to changing. We're going to say yes to becoming more to who we are, more of who we are, rather than stagnating in our old self, in our past. We don't want to stagnate there. This picture looks at hoarding as just money, but I want to create some thoughts about how hoarding is more than that. How many of us, I know several, can't sleep at night? Their mind is hoarding ideas and thoughts. We hoard our identity. We can hoard all these words of who we are or who we are not. We can hoard material things as well. When we stop hoarding all of those things to be good enough and lose that temptation to be more, we can stop and say, oh, I'm sufficient just as I am. We can breathe, and all of what's available can circulate again. We move from scarcity to sufficiency. We are sufficient. We remember we're not our houses, our cars. We're not our titles. And don't forget, we're also not our protections. We use fear sometimes to protect ourselves from harm, from having to face maybe if we did something wrong. We can hoard protections that keep us too protected. We can release those. Lead us not into temptation. Deliver us from. Lastly, we meditate on this line of the prayer. What we're doing. Oh, it skipped to. Go. Out there. When we're doing is we're living more deeply. We're listening for what's eternal in each fleeting moment. We're touching the sacred in the mundane. You need to take hour after hour trying to problem solve which paperwork to fill out, how to transfer the nonprofit that we're working out. But the group was able to maintain something sacred, which is the joy of still enjoying each other. And of course, I failed a little bit by having to look up information, but it was a good reminder for me when I was tempted to do that. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. In all of this, we're choosing a conscious wellness. We're continuing to allow our consciousness, what's inside of us, and all of our experiences to come forth. We're accepting ourselves as we are. It is a path of courage, like forgiveness. It's also a path of presence and accepting the wholeness of life. It helps us remember what we're choosing to be, which is ourself, being ourself fully, truthfully, and being reverent to all that is. And don't forget, we revere growth. So my gift tonight is that I want you to revere something that you grew today, some small amount, a tiny piece of awareness that came to you today, that grew out of a temptation. I grew in being more present. I don't have to be busy all the time to be worthy. If the task isn't done and I fail to meet an expectation, it's okay. There's still love in the room. May you find that reverence today in your growth. If it takes a couple of days, that's fine too. Namaste. Have a great day.